Hey cousin, welcome to CoCo Conjure. Here we talk about all things hoodoo, folklore, magic, wellness, and spiritual journeys. My goal is to provide foundation for the novice and inspiration to the advanced practitioner. If you have not guessed already, my name is CoCo. Cousin, I am beyond blessed that you have found me. Please subscribe or follow the podcast wherever you are listening, and be sure to leave a like or a 5-star review. I promise you, I will earn it. In this episode, we are going to talk about what you do before you go into a ritual, before you embark upon heavy and intricate and involved work. That's right. It's a foundational episode. So we're going to talk about that work before the work. I'm going to give you some of my pre-work tools and methods that I do, as well as define some terms, hopefully along the way. If you are brand new to magic, that's hoodoo or otherwise, now is the time to pull up the Notes app on your phone. Let's lay down some foundation. Let's lay the bricks down, right? And if you are an advanced practitioner, cousin, let's compare notes. Listen to my tale, listen to what I do, and then what do you do? How do you prepare for ritual or for heavily involved work? So let's start by defining terms. In hoodoo, and I would say most North American style conjure systems, work are acts that's performed to harness blessing or curse that are directed to a target. So if I were a witch, which I'm not a witch, but if I were a witch, I would call those a spell. For the purposes of my practice, I define ritual as works that require time and multiple steps to complete. For example, a single work. If I light a white candle in my home to promote peace, that's simply work, right? Single, one-off, done. Now, if I want to uncross my conditions, I would undergo a ritual, right? I would layer up the work. So I would clean my space, smoke out with rosemary, and then take a lemon spiritual bath, and then re-bless my home. So, work is not like work. Regular work is a singular step, and ritual is a multi-step and oftentimes multi-day process. So before I partake in any work or ritual, I follow this model of pre-work that, it helps me to make sure whatever I'm doing has a high success rate. It's not a long drawn out process, at least from my perspective, it's not. It's 3 steps. First, I diagnose the situation. Second, I choose the method of the work or a fix for the ailment that will work best. Fix meaning a cure, a remedy, ailment meaning my problem. And then I attune myself to the task. I attune myself to, I put my mind on the work of what it's coming up, There are a few undertakings that are used to diagnose the need for work. Anyone who's been around for a while knows that I promote efficient and simple practices. So I don't do the heavy, intricate work unless that kind of work needs to be done. You ain't gonna catch me doing a spell a day. That's not your girl. So how do I know I need to do work? The easiest is an obvious need for change in my life. For example, my car broke down, my rent went up, and groceries are, outrageous. My grocery budget went from, $60 every 2 weeks to $120 every 2 weeks. Like, this is enough of a reason for me to go, hey, listen, I should probably do some money draw work. Like, I should probably uncross, my conditions and bring in some prosperity, Okay, so that's an obvious one, right? So for the more complicated stuff, it was explained to me that whenever you are in a situation where mundane solutions aren't solving the problem, then you need to treat the issue with spiritual power. So, yes, you go to the doctor. That's the your PCP or your shrink or whoever. You go to the doctor, you get a medical diagnosis. I don't know. Say I have a headache and I've been dealing with headaches on and off for days. Now, the early me, the novice me might say, "Oh, I'm under spiritual attack. I got to go to the Botanica." But like the me now, the me now says, "Okay, I have a headache because I didn't drink enough water today." And the last meal I ate was like 14 hours ago. So like my first thought is always what mundane solutions can I apply to my problem, or is this even a spiritual issue? Like, is it just a bodily human being living my life problem, like a issue that can be solved with a pain medication or a tea for a headache or things like that. However, when the mundane solutions don't come, or even if you find that the mundane solution is like out of your reach, it's time to do some spiritual work over your situation. To fully diagnose that issue, you may need to read back in your journal to see if there's a pattern of behavior that appears after like momentous events. Perhaps you would undertake shadow work if necessary, or you can turn to the cards or divinatory methods to seek answers. The most common form of divination is card reading. I myself have 2 tarot decks, 1 playing card deck, and oracle cards. I was a little overzealous when I first started. For hoodoos, the playing card are normally the cards of choice, but like I said, tarot is not outside of the realm of hoodoo practice. There are tons of hoodoos now that use tarot in their practice instead of playing cards, and it might not be traditional, but it's fair. Like I think it's a fair substitution. But as I've gotten a little further in my practice, I've sought other forms of divination to diagnose my problems, my spiritual problems. So that can include like scrying or pendulums or throwing bones. If any of those things interest you, you might want to try those. I personally am a fan of scrying. I sit in absolute silence and I stare into a flame or a glass of water, and I allow my mind to focus solely on the movement of the flame or the stillness of the water, and I just tune into myself. And then I'll gently work through my issue in my mind and puzzle it out like I'm Sherlock Holmes. But this form of divination is using my ability to know. Like, and I said this before, sometimes I just get this feeling deep in my gut, and it tingles at the base of my neck, and I know, and I can't explain it past that. I just know something to be correct. And the flame and the water allow me to go beyond my physical self and to sit quietly enough to listen to the me that is my spirit, like listen to my inner self, and allow me to work through the problem safely and quietly. Now, not everyone has a natural talent or a want to cultivate a talent to perform divination. So at this step up in diagnosis, you might go get a reading from someone that you trust. Some questions that you may ask during the reading or after is this thing that's on me, is it something that someone put onto me, or is it something that I'm generating from my own spirit? Or is it just like life being life and I stepped into a situation, like I stepped in something? What's the real root of the issue at hand? Is it the fact that I don't have enough money, or is it the fact that I don't know how to manage my money? Right? Is it the fact that, something is blocking me from getting more money? The reader, if they are any good, will also have the fix to your ailment, and they will give you some work to complete on your own, or they might try to upsell you so they can do the work for you. That leads me to step number 2, which is choose the work. So if you went to the reader, this step is already taken for you because, like I said, if they're any good, they're going to give you the fix to your ailment, and they'll give you, pieces of a work to complete. Go home and do a 13 herb bath for 9 days, or I don't know. Go home and sit at your ancestor altar, clean it down with Florida water, and say, prayers or petition at your ancestor altar for 3 days. Like, they'll give you something to do to help fix your ailment. But if you're like me and you work, you want to do your work, you want to understand it and work from scratch on your own, you might find this helpful. So now that I've determined the issue, I did my scrying, or I saw the need for change and I determined my issue. It's now time for me to choose the best work to correct my course, to fix my ailment. At this point, I plan my work. Now, that would be the time that I do my research, maybe speak to a spiritual peer, or even just consult, my notebook. It's not quite a grimoire. It's it's kind of like a field journal. I consult my field journal on things that I've learned that I think would be useful in building my own work, or a historical traditional work that I can use to fix my ailment. So some things that I keep in mind as I build my work. One, remember that all work requires a target and a specific aim. So the target would be me, or, if I'm doing work over someone, like, say, for example, I don't know, my nephew lost his job. I might do work on his behalf, right? So he's my target. And then the aim, okay, this being specific in the aim is important because you'll want to see the return on your work clearly. For example, doing work to pull yourself out of debt makes more sense as an aim than doing work to draw money to you, right? Because you can generate 4 million of income, and if you don't have the wisdom and discipline of mind and spirit to put that to good use, that 4 million will be 4 pennies in no time, right? So is your problem that you don't have enough money, or is your problem that you are in debt? Like, you have enough money, but you're spending more than you're putting out. So you need to do a debt work, like money draw, to help you alleviate your debt, not to just have money in your pocket. So see how I'm being a little more specific there. It's not just about the cash flow. It's about having the cash stay longer than it flows out. Yeah, being specific in your target and your aim is top priority. Or else what are you even doing, right? Another part of building my work is balance. And I feel like a lot of folks don't take balance into consideration. So what do I mean by balance? If you push something out, or you push something away from you, you do a removal, then you need to make sure that you then come back and call your blessings, right? And vice versa. If you call your blessings, you also need to make sure that you're removing the things from your life that don't need to be there. So, for example, if you strip yourself of the cross conditions that are leading to debt, I don't know, there was a block in your way of your money, you stepped in something and you started leaking money, all of that, you remove that condition. Now you need to turn around and invite wealth into your life, right? You ask whichever divine guide you pray to for the wisdom on how to use the wealth that's coming, right? So that's the balance. If you remove, you have to call in. If you call in, then you need to also take the steps to remove what you don't need. That also applies to just spiritual and mundane. So as I prepare to fix my ailment, whatever work I'm doing, I also work in a mundane answer. So going back to this example of, you have a cross condition over your money and you're racking up debt. So if you're doing your work to unblock that, to call in your blessings, great. Now you need to go get a bill book and write your bills down. Now you need to take a look at, how much money you're spending out. And then wherever you keep this information, whatever you come up with your mundane solution, that bill book is where I did it. That bill book becomes a holy book. It's your holy text, right? So it's a blessed thing. So every month when I go there, every 2 weeks when I go there and I look to see how much money am I leaking, how much money is flowing in, I know that along with working my money bowl or whatever I'm doing, I'm taking mundane steps to my problem. I'm not just leaving it up for the spirits to decide and walking aimless and walking, blind. Like I'm pairing up the spiritual and the mundane, so that way I know that whatever work is being done has a pathway to success. We don't just live in the spiritual world. You have to take mundane steps too. Most importantly, at this stage, it's time to think of the actual work you're going to do from beginning to end. It's not enough to say, oh, I'm going to light this green candle for prosperity, right? Here are some questions you may ask yourself in this phase. At least these are the ones I ask myself when I'm working through my own work. When do I want to start? Am I looking at moon phases? Maybe I'm just going to start on a specific time of day or a specific day of the week, right? So if I'm working for money, we'll keep with that example. I might start on a Thursday because that's a day for wealth, right? If I'm trying to unblock or open my roads so that way I can see more opportunity and take advantage of opportunity of money coming to me, then I might start on a Sunday, right? Because that's a day of beginnings. Like, maybe I'm starting on a full moon. I don't know. Right? Like, but you have to take timing into consideration. I think in the Hoodoo Love Spells episode, Miss Ruth, one of Zora Neale Hurston's teachers, told her about times of day. So you have to start this work on a good hour. You have to start this work on a bad hour. Like, those are things you take into consideration as you do your work. Another question I ask myself is, where's the work going to be done, right? What technique am I going to use? So am I doing container work? Am I doing a spiritual bath? Do I need to pull out a needle and thread and make a doll, right? Is it candles all day? Like, those are things I need to know. So if I know the technique I want to use, that will influence where I do it. So I might start at my altar and then move to the bathroom for a spiritual bath, right? Or maybe, and I've done this before, it's summertime and it's warm out, so I'm going to take that spiritual bath and I'm going to go to the ocean. I'm going to go to the river, right? Like, I know where and I know how. That's important. Next. Now you need to get to like the nitty gritty details. So are you going to use a psalm in the work? Is there a text of importance you want to use? Or are you just kind of going to wing the prayer as you go? Are you going to write it yourself? How about oils for anointing? Do you make your own oils? Do you need to buy them? If you make your own oil, you need to start ahead of time if you ran low on your batch. If you need to buy them, you need to go to the Botanica and pick it up, right? And of course, what does the end of my ritual work look like? The end of my spiritual work, what does that look like? Am I going to bury the work at the crossroads? Is it something I can bury? Am I tossing it away as far as away from my home as possible? Does it end with a meal of thanks to the ancestors and whichever divine spirits I called upon? Like, finishing is just as important as starting. I don't know why. I don't know why people forget that they have to plan out how their work ends. it's the number one thing you see, especially online. I burned this candle and I don't know what to do now. Like, yeah, you didn't think it through. You didn't think that all the way through. You have to plan your work from beginning to end. So don't start work that you don't know how to finish. At least that's my rule. Okay, so this step, choose your work. This is the step where I normally lose people. Where I normally lose folks. To me, there are two types of people in the magic sphere, in this magical arena, no matter what your tradition is. You're either a consumer of magic or you are the magic practitioner. The kind of work I described, you are the magic practitioner. If you're a consumer of magic, go to the Botanica, get your reading, make sure this person is trusted, make sure they're not trying to, scam you out of thousands of dollars and make you come back over and over again, and do what they say, and then see if that works for you, right? There's nothing wrong with consuming a practice. Hoodoo, for example, there's usually like one or two people in the community who are able to plot work, who are able to, give you a fix for your ailment, to give you work to do. And they will sell you the supplies, for example, or if you don't think that's something you can do for yourself, they'll sell you their time and they'll do the work for you. But like, that's a normal thing in hoodoo. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, if you can't do your own work, then you shouldn't consume. Like, that's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. Not everyone is cut out or has the interest in doing like the technical parts of magical spiritual work, right? But if you're like me, and you want to be the magic practitioner, even if you're not doing work for others, even if you're not selling your talents, you just want to be as involved in your spiritual work as possible. Plotting the work and choosing the course, choosing the work itself requires a willingness to piece everything together. It's a essential step, really. It requires a cunning to get the work done in the moment of need and using what you have on hand to move the spiritual needle. So, the full moon was a week ago. I'm in the waning moon now, but I need to, do this money spell. So I'm either going to use the moon cycle to, relieve debt since it's getting smaller, or I'm going to start, at the top of an hour. I'm going to start, on a Sunday. I'm going to start first thing in the morning so I can bring things in, so I can, have a fresh beginning. Like, that requires a cunning. You're not being held to rules, specific rules. You're able to find a pathway to success based on what you have at hand. That's what I'm getting at. And most importantly, if you are the magical practitioner and you are plotting your own work, it requires a level of commitment. Some folks just want to light a candle that says fast money printed on it, and then they look bewildered at the end because they don't know what to do with the candle sleeve when it's done, and they don't see results, right? Like, they don't know what to do. All the while, if you are a practitioner who wants to do your own work, you have to understand that it's more than just the lighting of the green candle. It requires your commitment. It requires your spiritual intentions. It requires, um, how can I say this? Commitment is an expression of your spiritual intention. There it is. That's it. Commitment to your work is the beacon that lets all other forces around you know that you are serious about what you are doing and you are standing on business, right? It lets the spirits you are in contact with most know that this is what you want because you are showing dedication to it. You are putting in the time and effort. Some people always ask, like, oh, how do I add intention? Oh, some people say in response, oh, you add intention to your work by speaking what you want, by writing a petition. Sure, that's not wrong. But to me, I add my spiritual power. I add my intention to the work even before I start, because I am dedicated to getting it done, because I am committed to seeing it through. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. And I hope you guys take that to heart. So that leads me to my third step, pre-work, which is I attune myself. So now that I've determined what the issue is and what the best course of action is to fix it, I have to make peace with my decision. There can be no doubt in my mind and in my spirit that the work I am doing must be done in order to change my path or in order to make my path easier to travel. So to attune myself, I may do a couple things. I might sit with the ancestors, state the intentions I want. This is what I'm going to do. I need to do this because of yada. So I'm saying it out loud to myself. I'm allowing it to, I'm saying it out loud at the altar. It's a sacred space. I'm allowing it to like penetrate the mind, right? You can also sit in meditation. I do that. I sit in meditation, or I may pray and shore up my mind. I ask for covering. So, I think who was this? Who wrote this book? Hold on. Let me find the book. Okay, I found it. I had to literally step away for a second, but I found it. So this is the book I was looking for was Mountain Conjure and Southern Root Work by Orion Foxwood. So Orion Foxwood, he's a person of multiple traditions, but he grew up in Appalachia, or the Appalachian area, I should say, and he practiced his roots are in Southern Conjure. Not necessarily hoodoo, although he does say that there's a lot of inspiration from the hoodoo sphere. But again, I think that's because of where he's from. It's adjacent to those practices. So that makes sense to me. But he says in his book, Mountain Conjure and Southern Root Work, he says, covering means that a blessing from a higher power or sacred spirit is placed on the client, like a covering to prevent reintrusion of the harm and to set the new prayer in the spirit of the client. Usually we did this by covering our hands with olive oil and praying to God or the Maker to fill our hands with his or her power and crown, or cover the client with blessings of Holy Spirit. There are other forms of healing and conjuration, but this form is specifically direct maker work. So yeah, I sit at my altar and I do what Orion is talking about. Not in the same way, but same general feel. Like I am asking for the covering, for the blessing of my ancestors, that bank of blessings that they accumulated in their life. I'm asking to take from it, to take from it to help with my life here on this planet. And I don't talk about my cosmology a lot on this podcast, but I will say that I will also I will call to the spirits that pertain to what I need and ask them to cover me with their power as well. Like allow me to just have a little piece of them. And I don't work like, you can work with saints, you can work with whatever, and that might be the actual work. You might not do that beforehand to attune yourself. But I don't work with saints. So when I attune myself, I am trying to embody, invoke. I'm trying to invoke the spirits of like human condition, even before I step into ritual, and asking them to just be with me, to hear me as I make that petition, as I go forth with my work. So I'm trying to attune myself with them as well. So that kind of attunement happens probably like moments before I start the actual work itself. But there are also other attunements that I do, now that I'm thinking about it, that happen before I set the altar, set the lights, whatever. So I like, if I write down my work, I'll write down the steps of what I'm going to do and kind of visualize in my mind how it's going to go. I'm a huge advocate of writing your work down so that you can go back to it later, even if you don't do it the same step by step every time. I don't think it's necessary to do it step by step the same every time, but it's good to just keep a written record. And I also know that that sounds like blasphemy from a hoodoo. Because in hoodoo, they'll tell you straight up, it's our oral tradition. You don't write stuff down. But listen, if Zora Neale Hurston could write it down, then I can write it down. Right? Like she made her life, a life's mission of hers was to write down these practices. If she can do that, then I can just write down what I'm doing. Like I don't got to share with anybody. I can just write it down. Another thing I do for larger rituals besides writing it down is I usually give up something. So, for example, when I do an open road ritual, usually I do that at the end of the year, going into the new year. I'll give up a thing. This year was, I gave up added sugar. So I couldn't eat foods with added sugar to them. And that sacrifice made me continually question my commitment. Cause ain't nothing like giving up added sugar around Christmas time. Let me tell you, them cookies be calling. But it made me go, okay, no. I am committed to this and I need to do the spiritual work. I can give up the Christmas cookie. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. Like, I'm committed to this work. So I'm attuning my mind to that, constantly reminding myself, I need to do this. And I have the desire to get this done. And I'm standing on my business. So I can give up XYZ to make sure that happens, And finally, no matter the work, I take the time to clean myself and my space. So I break out my small broom, or a witch would call it a besom. I break out that small broom and I sweep my altar. If it's bigger works, I'll change the whole altar scape. But sometimes, I'm just doing a little candle something. So if that's the case, I sweep the altar down and brush away all the whatever, clean space. And I have an incense I make that I burn, and I smoke my space and I smoke myself. Like I'll take the cauldron and I'll place it on a fire safe dish on the floor, and I will walk over it and smoke myself. If it's a bigger work, I will do a whole cleansing thing. Like I'll get in the shower, take a spiritual bath, do the whole cleansing thing, and then do the work. But for smaller things, I sweep the altar down and I smoke myself in the space. And then, of course, I also anoint my head with the holy oil, and I wrap my hair up. And then this is when I normally go into the covering. This is when I normally sit and attune myself to my task, get that ancestral blessing, and then call out to whatever spirit of human condition I want to work with or I'm in need of in that moment, and ask for for them to be in the space with me and for them to cover me with their power, and then I'll go into my work, right? So starting from as early as planning the work to like, and writing it down, and then am I going to give up something for this? If it's big enough, I might give up something, to the cleansing beforehand, to the covering, literally moments before. Those are all things I do to attune myself to the work I'm about to complete. So to recap, before I launch into candles and jars and crossroads, before I launch into, work for work's sake, I jump into my 3-step pre-work routine. Number 1, I diagnose my problem. If there is no mundane solution, or the mundane solution is out of my reach, then I know work needs to be done. Sometimes I know that a change has to occur. Sometimes I can't see it that clearly, and so I sit in divination. It's okay if you aren't good at divination practices. Just go to somebody you trust. And then second, I choose the work. I plan out my work from beginning to end. I look at what I have on hand, and I choose the method that would best fix the ailment. And then third, I attune myself to the work. I write it down. I prepare my mind, my spirit, and my space. And that happens from the moment I decide that from the moment after I figure out how the work needs to be done, to the moment right before I start. I'm constantly attuning myself with and having no doubt in my mind that this work needs to be completed, and that in completion of this work, good things will come my way. So, cousin, I hope that this was helpful to you. I pulled this straight out of my field journal, and I feel a little vulnerable talking about it. It's always been a part of hoodoo to go to the hoodoo doctor to fix your ailment. Like I've said before, and I've told countless stories about folks visiting the hoodoo doctor on this podcast. And even though I don't see myself doing work for others, like for money or any sort of consistent basis, I found that building my own work and using classic techniques as well puts me in the center of my own practice. So if that's you, I hope you're able to gather something from this process. Something from, my notes on how I've come to these processes. Again, I'm feeling a little vulnerable, so I hope this was helpful to somebody. Okay, so at this stage in the podcast, I usually read a question or two from Reddit or Facebook and answer it. I have looked at these questions before. It is something I think I can answer, but I haven't thought of a full answer before this moment. So, and a lot of times I pick these questions weeks in advance and then I answer it, and I already forgot what the question was. So let's get into the first question. The first question comes from a Conjure board on Reddit. It's titled Doubts. It says, I ask for advice. For some reason, a root worker is offering a High John the Conqueror work for others. My questions are, will it be effective since it's done on my behalf? And I don't really have a relationship with High John. And can I ask for success in winning someone's affection? Okay, so listen. Again, it's not outside of the realm of hoodoo and conjure for someone to do the work on your behalf. So yes, it can be effective as long as the person knows what they're doing. That's it. If they know what they're doing, then the work can be effective. So you should really make sure that you have an understanding of this person and where they come from in their practice before you outsource your work. And then the second part of your question, you don't have to have a relationship with High John because the practitioner is doing the work. And so they're using their spiritual power on your behalf, and they're covering themselves with the spirit of High John and you with High John to get the work done. So you don't have to have that relationship. And then finally, can I ask for success in winning someone's affection? You can, but that's not what High John is for. High John is normally for breakthroughs, for trying to, have some sort of victory or justice in your favor. It's not meant for love work. Um, so I would not use a High John the Conqueror work to win someone's affection. That I would not do that. That was short and easy. I like that one. Okay, the next question, the last question, comes from a witchcraft board on Reddit. Um, I've said like 5 times or whatever during this podcast. I'm not a witch, but you will always find me on the witch boards. I like going on them. I find them very interesting. Okay, so the title says state intention or set intention. Uh, and the body says this. So I'm a tarot reader and a witch. I'm kind of embarrassed by asking this. How do I set my intention for a spell I've done? I've done a couple spells and a transmutation spell recently, but I feel like nothing's happened and I've did everything right, but I'm not setting the intention right. How do I set my intention for a spell? Please don't judge me. I'm kind of embarrassed asking this question. Okay. Well, first of all, don't be embarrassed. I think it's a valid question. Because especially coming out of 2020, everyone says intention is everything, and no one tells you how to do it. So, like I've said in this episode so far, um, my intentions have been set the moment I've plotted my work, the moment I've chosen what work I want to do, and I've plotted it out from beginning to end. Intention set, right? This is what I want. This is my desire. And then I use that third step of attunement to make sure that is truly what I want, and that I am in constant alignment with that desire. Like my mind is always there before I do the work, because after I do the work, I forget about it. I just let the work, right? So there's that. But there's other ways to set intention. So I spoke before, you can speak over your work. Just say what you want out loud, write the petition. That's a way to set your intention during work. And then some people work, like I said, with intention being everything. So they use the green candle because they intend for the green to mean money. They use the basil because they intend for the basil to use money. But that can get kind of tricky, depending on how you see the world, how you view spirits. Because as an animist, and I think I'm going to do an episode on animism. As an animist, I think that everything has an inherent spirit. Everything has an inherent like spiritual aspect. So for example, I don't intend for fire to burn. Fire burns. Fire consumes. I don't intend for that. That's what it does, right? So I don't work with intention in the work itself, like in the moment, because the mint is prosperous. It wants to reach out and grow and become bountiful. I don't have to intend for that. That's what mint is. So if I use it in my money work, that's what it's doing. Right? Like, I don't intend for, like I said, I don't intend for the fire to consume the wax, to fuel the work. That's what it does. That's what fire does. Right? But some people, the whole thing is intention. The color is intention. They don't believe in the spirit of the plant or the object or whatever. And so it's all intentional. Like, intention is laced through everything. So the very performance of the spell is setting your intention in that case. So there's a couple different ways to go about it. It really depends on how you see the world and how your magic practice functions. What your cosmology is. It really depends on that. But if you're just lighting a candle to light the candle, If you're just doing the spell to do the spell and there's no meaning behind it and you have no desire to get the work done, then I would say you have not set intention. But if you know what you need done and you've attuned yourself to that desire and then you carry it out, everything you do from that point forward is done with your intention, is done with your spiritual power layered on top. That said, like spell work isn't like a microwave. You don't just set the timer and then it goes ding and the food comes out hot and and your work is done. It's not how it works. I personally believe that it's a gateway. Work is a gateway, and it can fix the problem as long as after you've done your work, you have enough wisdom to see the path of success. But again, that might go back to me having that knowing deep in my gut. Like I know something, that might go back to that. Just a thought. All right. 2 and done, right? So thank you so much, cousin, for being here with me today. I appreciate you. Every time I hit record in Audacity, I'm like, oh my goodness, I am just blessed, super blessed to have anyone listening to me. If you haven't done so already, please make sure that you give this podcast a like or subscribe or follow wherever you are. Please leave a 5-star review. I feel like I opened up. I maybe have earned that 5 stars. If you think so, please make sure you leave that 5-star review. Before I go, I just want to let you know, cousin, you deserve the world. Truly. And if you put in the time and the commitment and you put in the work, your work gets done and good things will happen for you. And if you call for your blessings, they will come to you. I'll see you guys next time.